Hello YouTube, this is Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you today. I'm going to take you to one of the various London craft breweries that have popped up in the last little while. There's some really good beer coming out of London at the moment. I've reviewed a couple of the really good breweries that are just starting up for you already. I did the Pressure Drop Brewing's Fryman's Dunkelweiss, that was my most recent one, and previously I did the London Fields Brewery's Three Vice Monkeys, really beautiful beer, and also the Camden Town's Hell's Lager of course, and some of the English beer reviewers as well. They're giving rave reviews to the Kernel Brewery. So check all of those breweries out if you're interested, and indeed this one. I've tried this beer for you before. So today we're going to have a little look at the Beavertown Brewery and have a look at their Gamma Ray beer, which is an American Pale Ale. I bought my friend this one for his Christmas and he let me try it. It's a really beautiful American Pale Ale, I have to say. But as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a little bit of a history of the brewery. This one actually has a connection to Led Zeppelin of course, so if you're into them you might want to stick with me for that. But as I always say, you're always welcome just to go on towards the second part of the video if you are just interested in the tasting here. But the Beavertown Brewery was established in December 2011 by Logan Plant and Byron Knight in the kitchen of Duke's Brewing Q in de Beauvoir in Hackney in London. Beavertown is actually the old Cockney name given to this de Beauvoir region in the Hackney of course there, and the brewhouse was originally located across from the Smokers of Barbecue restaurant, and it ran 650 litre brews. But you might recognise the name Logan Plant there. I'm pretty sure he is the grandson of Robert Plant, the famous singer from Led Zeppelin of course there. When I went to buy this beer at the Aberdeen Odd Bins, I said to the guy there, because he used to work in the music shop in Aberdeen, I picked this one because I liked the artwork and it was called Gamma Ray, and I'm a scientist as well, so two things there. One of my favourite bands, Gamma Ray, and also the fact, you know, the scientist element there. And then I took it up and he said, oh, that's actually Robert Plant's grandson's brewery, so quite a cool musical connection there. Hackney is a very musical area of London of course. But just more recently, to go back onto the history of the brewery there, I took a little deviation there. But in March 2013 they moved out of their home at Duke's Brewing Q and into their new brew site in Fish Island in London, and this facility has given them a lot more space, and it's actually allowing them to produce at far greater capacity of course as well, and produce a lot more experimental beers too. But they actually have a blog on the brewery website where you can keep up to date with the current goings on at the brewery. The most recent entry there is about the Halloween seasonal beer that they produced there called Stingy Jack, or Stingy Jack, I'm not sure, Stingy Jack's Spiced Pumpkin Ale there, and you can read the little story about Stingy Jack as well. It's quite funny actually, so I'll put the link to that in the video description there and you can check it out if you're interested. I'll put the link to their Facebook page in the video description as well, so if you're into that, go and give them a like and stuff like that. But to tell you about the other beers that this brewery do, this is just a very brief history of course, a very new brewery like I mentioned. But their core range includes the 8 Ball, which is a 6.2% rye IPA, Black Betty, which is a 7.4% black IPA. They have the Gamma Ray, which is this one of course here, a 5.4% American Pale Ale. They have Neck Oil, which is a 4.3% Black Country Pale Ale as it's described. That sounds quite interesting actually. And they have the Smog Rocket, which is a 5.4% smoked porter. And all of these actually, if you look at the brewery artwork, they all have different pyramids on them here, and this is where you can see the Led Zeppelin connection, this sort of 70s psychedelic feel to it if you like. But they've also got the Alpha series of experimental brews. But let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself. As I mentioned, I gave my friend one of these for Christmas and I really enjoyed it. I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little closer look at the artwork here. As I mentioned, each of the different Beavertown beers have a different pyramid on here. Some of them have got windows and some of them are under construction and stuff like that, and you can just see it round on the back there. You've got this sort of War of the Worlds thing going on here. I really like the artwork that they've put on these ones. It looks very retro, a little bit. I'm trying to remember what the name of that Led Zeppelin album is where you've got the babies on the rocks and stuff like that, but it's a really nice sort of artwork on this one. I'll sort of like that little connection to Led Zeppelin there. There's just a plain bottle cap on this one here. But it would be quite cool to actually see them introduce, you know, just a white version of this and stick it on the bottle cap. But as I said in a number of videos, I think that's quite expensive for the craft breweries to do. But as I mentioned, this is a 5.4% American Pale Ale. Just to tell you a little bit about the hop and malt profile here, it's malted with Simpson's Best, Caragold and Caramalts, and it's hopped with Magnum, Columbus, Bravo and Amarillo hops. And this one was originally part of the Alpha series experimental beers that I mentioned to you a moment ago, but it was actually released as a regular beer or a member of the core range in 2012. But let's get this guy open and get on with the tasting here. Quite looking forward to actually doing the review for this one, as I mentioned earlier. So let's pop this guy open. There we are, a little bit of smoke on the opening there, but let's get this guy poured and see how we get on here. Not sure, I actually think I maybe saw just a little bit of sedimentation there. I'll sugar up the last little bit. You should always do that with your beers, just get a little bit of head on them here. This one, as I remember, didn't have so much of a head compared to some beers, of course, but you know, it's not the most important thing, but just try and get your beers a little bit of a head there. But as you can see, it's a really, really nice, beautiful orangey golden colour here. It's hazy. I can't see my fingers if I put them like that there. You've got a nice half finger of a just sort of, I would say that's definitely a white head, not an off-white head at all. A nice frothy foamy head there with some bigger bubbles as well, just about half finger of that. There's a lot of carbonation kind of sticking to the sides of the glass there, bigger bubbles. I'd expect this beer to be quite smooth because of that, but a nice beautiful hazy bright orange golden colour here, and there's quite a bit of an aroma coming off this one, of course, here. But the description that was on the website for this one, it says big, hoppy and fresh, juicy American hops added to an ever increasing amount at the end of the bale and in the fermenter to give huge flavour and aroma. So this is a really heavy hop beer, if you like, a really hop forward beer here. But in terms of the aroma, there's a lot of sort of strong pine resins with this one, of course, which is what you would expect from the American Pale Ale, and you're getting a good bit of tropical fruit in there as well. Tropical fruit definitely sort of dominating over the citrus, if you like. A big blast of pine resin and citrus and tropical fruit there. As I say, this is what you expect from an American Pale Ale. But a really nice APA smell, actually. This is one of the best APAs I've had a little bit of a whiff of the aroma of, but a really beautiful smelling beer, this one, and it tastes beautiful as well. I can tell you that for a fact before I've even done this. But yeah, a really beautiful aroma there. The hops actually maybe have just a little bit of herby character to them, herbal character, but there's mainly the fruits and pine resin, but you do have a little hint of a kind of caramel malt base in there as well. A really beautiful smelling beer, but mainly the pine and sort of citrus and tropical fruits there. The tropical fruits are dominating over the citrus there, but let's give this guy a taste and see how we get on. This beer is beautiful. I know that for a fact before I've even done this. Yeah, you get a big bitterness on this one with your first taste. If you just take a gulp on the first instance, you'll get that good bit of bitterness there, and it gets you right into this beer. But yeah, it's following the aroma quite well, as I remember it doing. You've got a big sort of blast of the pine resin there, and the good bit of citrus coming in. The citrus is a little bit more dominating in the flavour, whereas you're getting a bit more of the tropical fruits out in the aroma, of course. But I think the citrus is dominating a little bit more inside the flavour than the tropical fruits, to be honest. But yeah, you're opening up with that nice big pine resin flavour with a good bit of citrus in there. The tropical fruits are in the background actually, and it's opening up to that nice sort of caramel malt base that you can smell. And the fruity and piney elements are coming back at the end there, and the tropical fruit is actually coming out more in the aftertaste than the citrus. The citrus is the one that's coming up to you first, of course, there. But the tropical fruit is definitely the one that's more lingering in the aftertaste. And the pine resin, of course, as you expect with this style, as I've said many a time, the pine resin is the sort of underlying flavour with this one, with that nice caramel malt base. But yeah, this is an awesome pale ale, I have to say. Very, very smooth in terms of the mouthfeel, of course. It's actually a really, really nice mouthfeel. One of the easiest drinking American pale ales I've had, actually. It's definitely a mid-bodied one. It's almost a little oily, if you like, but it's very easy drinking. You've got a slight little hint of alcohol warmth in there, but the carbonation, as I mentioned, you had a lot of big bubbles sticking around it there, and this is a very, very smooth pale ale. It actually, the carbonation in this one is barely noticeable, to be honest. It's a very, very smooth, it's not maybe just a little hint syrupy as well, but it's a very, very smooth American pale ale. This is one of the best American pale ale style beers that I've had, actually, and you know, this is beautiful. If you get the chance, try this one. My friend let me try it for his for the one I got him for his Christmas, of course. This is a beautiful beer. Don't miss out the chance to try this one. But yeah, that really nice piney element there coming through with the citrus blast up front, the nice caramel malt base, then the sort of bitterness and fruitiness from the pine resins coming back, and the tropical fruits coming out a little bit more there. As I say, one of the nicest mouthfeels I've had from an American pale ale beer. Overall, it's an amazing American pale ale. And it has a nice little bit of complexity in there with the fruits, the fact that the citrus is coming up and then the tropical fruit is the one that's coming out more at the end. And this is a great example of the rise of London craft beer. There's some really good things to be found here. There's a lot of hidden gems, if you like, and hopefully I'll get to try more of these over the next little while. But if you get the chance, based on this beer, anything you're going to get for the Beavertown Brewery is not going to be a disappointment, of course. And there's, as I mentioned, there's a lot of good London craft beer that are quite rightly getting very good reviews, not just from me, but from other YouTube beer reviewers as well, and indeed from a lot of people who write in magazines and things like that. But I hope you found this beer review informative. I've enjoyed doing this one for you. As I mentioned, a lot of good craft beer coming out of London, and this one is no exception, of course. One of the best American pale ales I've had, actually, in recent times. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. Please let me know in the comments section if you've enjoyed this one, if you've enjoyed this review, and let me know your own thoughts on the beer as well. And you know, thanks again for watching my beer reviews. I've done about 140 of these now. Thanks for your continued support. And please also, if there's those of you watching from London, suggest other London craft breweries for me to look at. You can get these things quite widely in odd bin stores throughout the UK now, so when I go to Edinburgh, Glasgow and Aberdeen and stuff like that, I can pick these things up. So thanks again for all your recommendations in advance if you like, but please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you're enjoying my beer reviews, and I'll be back soon with another one for you. Cheers.